Hi, welcome back to the ATSF Wild Subdivision. In this episode I'm going to be installing a sound decoder into one of my locomotives. This is an Atlas Master Series engine which came factory installed with an Atlas dual mode decoder. After I drop the screwdriver once, we'll get the shell disassembled here so we can get access to the inside of the locomotive. Inside the engine, you'll see the Atlas dual mode decoder. I start by taking all the wires off of this. As I popped the board out, I discovered that the marker light LEDs were actually soldered to the board rather than pinned like all the rest of them. I go ahead and desolder them at this point, but I end up not reusing the marker LEDs. I just leave the marker lights bare. The decoder I have only has 4 function outputs, and I decided not to bother with it because I really should have 6 functions just for the marker lights. I might at some point add a function-only decoder to this engine, but I don't know. I then trim off the motor mounts from the decoder, the old decoder, and here we have our new decoder. Tsunami 2 TSU 1100 decoder. It is the Baldwin and Others version, since this is a Fairbanks Morris engine. I start out by grabbing it and the speaker. The speaker, which you'll see here in a sec, is out of an iPhone 4. I rearrange the speaker and the decoder a little bit to figure out which way they fit the best, and then use some double stick foam tape to place them on the motor. I start wiring the decoder as per the instructions. One thing I can tell you about doing decoder installations, this wire stripper is an absolute godsend. It goes way, way down to little wires. I believe it's a Micromark product. Here I'm attaching the track pickup wires. I did have to add a little wire between the front and back truck because the wires weren't quite long enough to reach to each other. As I attach all these wires, I will remind people to make sure that you put your heat shrink tubing on before you solder the connections. As you can see, I'm using a piece of weight, I guess if you want to call it that, to hold the excess wires out of the way so that I can solder these connections, and then shrinking the heat shrink tubing. Next, I connect the 2 motor wires. This I end up having to fix a little bit later, but I don't have any video of that. More heat shrink tubing. If you were paying attention, you might have noticed I soldered one of those connections without heat shrink tubing and had to take it apart. Not a wise choice. And then I go ahead and connect the speaker here. The terminals on this iPhone speaker are a little small. They're kind of a pain, but not too bad. Also, the tweezers are a must when you're trying to do this stuff. Slide the heat shrink tubing on for them. Crank them up. Now throw the decoder up on the track. If you listen closely, you'll hear the decoder fire up. At this point, I go ahead and start hooking up lights. As you can see, I'm building this little bank of resistors here in the corner. You'll notice there are 4 resistors there, all wired together. I eventually took that apart because at this point I was still thinking I was going to solder all of my different lights, but that didn't work the way I had intended it to work. So sorry about that. Got interrupted by family while I was filming. As you can see, I'm putting heat shrink tubing on the end of the resistor bank. Again, I had to take all of that apart later, but that comes later. Go ahead and solder the resistor bank to the positive wire on the decoder for the functions. And then I attach the wire for the front headlight. While I'm doing all this, I'm actually watching one of Sparky 107's Sunday night live streams. Throw the engine up on the track, test it out. I'm real disappointed in the headlight. Decided that I'm going to remove it, replace it with an LED. So here I am trying to remove it. That was kind of a pain to get the front headlight out. Back headlight was already off the engine, but the front one was kind of a pain. I do eventually get it out of here. And then I grabbed some new LEDs. The LEDs I have are very small, and so I use this plastic to create a light tube for the little LEDs. And once I attach the wires here, I will use some heat shrink tubing to insulate the wires, but I also put some over the LED itself, and then put the little tube inside it. I test everything to make sure it'll fit first, then I shrink it all down. And I ended up having to cut this LED tube, but you can't actually see me do that because that's not on video because my camera died. Now I'm feeding wires through for the LED. Again, some of this gets changed a little bit later, but and then I'll do the same thing for the rear light. At this point I'm taking that bank of resistors off the decoder. Now I'm going to take them apart because I only need 2 of them. And I'm also going to attach the capacitor for the decoder while I'm at it. So I attach an extra wire and the LED and the 2 resistors to the blue wire coming out of the decoder. The wire that I attach to the blue wire gets attached to the capacitor. And I grab the instructions and take a look at them quick. After looking at the instructions to make sure I get the right wire, I then attach the other wire to the capacitor. If I have issues with this engine, I might pull the capacitor and put in a keep alive, but I don't know, we'll see. There's not a whole lot of room in this engine, so. Kind of checking my wires, make sure I got room for everything. Now I'm doing the rear light, soldering it up, getting ready to put it on the track. damn it! I got too close to that. I'll tell you what, foam does not smell very good when you burn it a little bit. That sucks. Well, I guess it's not pristine anymore. Once I get everything soldered up, I go ahead and organize all these lights onto the... Oh, I do put the other light tube on. I'm sorry, I forgot that part. There we go, got the other light tube on. Trim off the heat shrink tubing. Now I put everything into the decoder. Get the capacitor. I take a little bit of black heat shrink tubing, put over the capacitor. I only did this because the capacitor is in the cab and I want it to kind of disappear when you look through the windows of the cab. And then I tested all of that and stuck it on the track, and my lights didn't work. Yeah. Discovered I had them wired backwards. Easy fix, but don't think you need to watch me unsolder and resolder all that, so... And then I'll do a little programming to it and test it with the correct horn and the correct motor sounds.